All right, I'm Steve Owenby, pastor here at Westport Baptist Church, and we have another episode of Meet the Church. And today we have one of our newer families that have come in to talk with all of us and to talk with you. And we're just going to ask them some questions, give you a chance to get to know them. We may even have some special little guests that pop over here in just a moment to let you meet them as well. But we have Greg and Ellen Weekley that are here. And Greg and Ellen, so glad that you've come in today, and appreciate you coming in and giving us a chance to get to know you. You know, one of the challenges in a church when you've got new members, it's hard for the people in the church to really kind of get to know who you are and what your story and your history is. So I think this is why this video has really struck a chord with people at our church, because they've gotten the opportunity to get to learn about your life and where you came from and all your dark secrets and everything. So not really, but anyway. So tell me, how long have y'all been attending here at Westport?
It's been just about a year. We moved here into the area a year ago. We were living in Ohio and we moved down, and I think we started attending the church here within probably a month of being here.
VBS,
Okay.
that was
VBS got you in. Awesome.
Because we thought it would be a great way for our girls to get to meet some
Yeah.
classmates, or
Right.
kind of get, have some practice into meeting new friends and
Right.
getting ready for school.
Right.
that's
So
how
that
we
was
started.
how did you hear about VBS?
Well, online, and then we attended a church service.
Oh, okay.
Both
Okay.
of those things. Yeah.
Awesome. So whereabouts did you all live in Ohio?
We lived near Columbus, Ohio,
Okay.
in a small town out east.
So we were in Columbus about probably 3 or 4 years ago. We had, I'm trying to remember why we even went up there, but for whatever reason, we had ended up going up to Columbus. Seems like there was I think my daughter Christy was with us, and it seems like there was a Josh Groban concert up
okay.
there.
Oh, yeah.
And she really likes Josh Groban, so we got tickets and went to a concert that he had up there. So it's an outdoor amphitheater that was up in that area.
As in the city?
Actually, no, maybe I'm backwards. Maybe that was in Cincinnati, but I'm trying to remember why we went up to
Yeah, the
Columbus.
Southern Baptist Convention held one of their yearly conference was held in Columbus maybe 3 years ago.
That might be why we were up there. I'm drawing a blank, but I don't
Sure.
want to. I don't waste your time on that. But
But you've been up there then.
well, yeah, we have.
Okay.
And Columbus was a beautiful city. Yeah. It's still processing in my mind. Why was I in Columbus? What did we go up there for? But it might have been the convention. But it's just slipping my mind at the moment. But anyway, so you've been here and you went online. When you moved to the area, and obviously it sounds like finding a church home was a priority for you. And so how did you start that search? Was it drive around? Was it look on the internet? Combination or what?
It was the internet for me. I started my research when we were in Columbus, and
Okay.
I was looking for churches, and then I grew up Southern Baptist, so I just typed in, and
Yeah.
and Westport popped up, and I listened to some of your sermons and things that
And
you
you
had
still
on.
came.
And I still
Wow,
came,
wow.
But,
There really is a God in heaven, right?
yeah, no. But I just felt like based on what my research, and not that I was doing in-depth research, but it just seemed just a very welcoming place. So we came and attended a service. Probably it was 1st of July, maybe middle of July,
So a year ago.
a year ago.
Yeah, just
Wow.
about exactly a year ago.
And then we attended I love VBS. I have since I was a kid, and so
Right.
I always want them to be able to do that. That's a big part of their
Right.
summer. They enjoy it, and anyway, so I wanted them to. So we came
And they were doing that every year up in Ohio.
yeah,
So,
Right.
they love it, and the
and
music
we were going to
and
miss
all
it
of
last
that.
summer probably, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we had this, and
Yeah.
we started coming to the church and enjoyed it.
Yeah, speaking of VBS, there's just so much uncertainty right now. We've had to really abbreviate it this year. I think we're doing a one-day thing this year, which I'm going to miss that, because that's always a exciting time for our kids and for the whole church. But and you know, it's just, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah,
So.
and it's an opportunity to bring outside people in.
Yeah, exactly. So, wow. So, why don't we jump back to well, first of all, let me say this. You guys, I stopped by your house one time after y'all had visited, and you're up in the Shirles Ford area right now, renting a home, but you are getting ready to be neighbors with one of the families, or actually 2 or 3 families in our church.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that we realized
Yeah.
that exactly.
Well, maybe not in your immediate
Okay.
subdivision,
But
but
they're on that. I know you're.
on the
you're
road,
doing one
the
of 'em.
peninsula. Huh?
That's right. You guys.
Yeah,
That's
we're out there. You're moving out there probably within maybe a quarter of a mile, maybe a half mile at the most
Golf
from
cart
our house.
distance.
Golf cart distance, bicycle distance.
Oh,
You know?
perfect. Yeah.
And then you've got Art and Susan McLaren, the subdivision across the road from where you're at.
yeah.
Their home is down that way, and then you got Arthur and Barbara Wilson. They're in that same subdivision over there. I don't know if you've met any of those, but and then on around the loop that we live on, there's you got Rex and Cindy Mason that live back there. And I think that may be actually right down the road from us. How could I forget? We got to be good buddies with Dennis and Tina Miller. So they live down there as well.
Okay, well, that's great.
So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going to be 6 families over there.
Wow.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah. So let's jump back to the beginning here. Tell me where you grew up, what life was like growing up, siblings. What role did church and the Bible and all maybe play in your life growing up and all?
Sure. Yeah, well, I grew up in eastern Ohio in a town called East Liverpool, Ohio, which was an industrial town. My dad was a steel mill worker, just like his dad was a steel mill worker. So it was one of those kind of towns, all based on that heavy industry, potteries and steel mills. So anyways, I grew up right by the Ohio River. It's right where the Ohio River came into Ohio from Pennsylvania. And so it was a real blue-collar kind of place, but a nice place as a kid to grow up, actually. Until that area of the country, like a lot of the rest, kind of started to go downhill. My dad's steel mill shut down in 1982, and that kind of, before that, the writing was on the wall, and so that area started to kind of go downhill.
Right.
But anyways, I grew up going to church there. I've talked to you this before. I was baptized as a Methodist when I was
That's
a
one
baby.
thing we got in common. We
Before-
both spent time in the Methodist church in our
Oh,
younger
yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's how I grew up going to church. That and the Presbyterian churches that were in the area where I grew up. I grew up going to church in that way. So anyways, when I was finished with high school from there, I went to Ohio State. And after I graduated from Ohio State, I went into the Navy. I traveled all over the world in the Navy as a pilot. Once I moved, the final place that I lived was in Washington, D.C., after I had moved all over the country. And Ellen and I actually met at an Ohio State-Michigan game, of all things.
Wow. Are you a Michigan State fan?
No, not at
Okay.
all. But
Ohio State fan?
No, not well. I am now. I'm a Buckeye fan, but
Good supportive wife.
yeah, this is it's a funny story because a mutual friend lived in Columbia, and she would go to Carolina football games with me, to the USC games, and she said, "This is great and this is fun." But
USC as in
South
Carolina.
Carolina,
Boy, that is such a touchy issue.
I guess
You know,
it
you
is.
say Carolina. In North Carolina, they're like, don't dare, if you're from South Carolina, call the Gamecocks Carolina. And if you're from South Carolina and somebody from North Carolina refers to Chapel Hill as
Yeah.
the Carolina, they're like, don't you dare call them the Carolina. We're the true Carolina. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's funny. so she grew up. Her mother and Greg's mother are really close friends, and she grew up knowing Greg, and so she invited me up to Columbus because she had lived in Columbia, South Carolina, and moved back to Columbus, and so I went to visit her, and we went to a ball game.
So this was a setup from the get-go.
Yeah, I don't know if it was or not. She
Not
may,
that I knew of.
she may never admit it, but anyway, Greg and his friends from college, they've all gone to the games for years and years, and we met up with them, and that's how we met and started dating. And
So you were in college when you met?
nope.
No.
Neither one of us.
Well,
Oh,
past
afterwards.
college. Yeah,
Okay.
actually, it was pretty late, much later in life. So
Okay.
when we met, I was almost 40.
Yeah,
right?
and I was 30. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was out of school 10 years, and you've been out and doing
Yeah.
the Navy thing, and
Okay.
so that's how we met. We dated for a year, and then we got married, and
And then she moved up to D.C. and we lived in D.C. Until I finished with the Navy as a
Right.
reservist.
Okay.
So I did some active duty time and then some reserve time.
Right.
And then working at American Airlines at the same time. And once we were done with that, then we were wanting to have kids.
Yeah.
And so,
So do you have siblings?
oh yes, I do. I'm
grew-
sorry. So go back to that. I have an older sister. That's
Uh-huh.
it. She still lives. She moved back. She kind of moved around the
Right.
country a little bit after high school, but she
Yeah.
ended up back in my hometown, and she's there now with my niece and nephew.
Yeah, are your parents still living?
My
or-
parents are still living. They're still there. We just went to the beach with them.
Oh, that's
2
right. You
weeks
told me
ago,
that. That's
so,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
and can I say about his mom and dad? They are very active. We went to Disney last year, and your dad's 82, and he rode Space Mountain.
Oh,
like
my
there was
goodness.
no. I mean,
Oh,
they are
my
just
goodness.
the most active people for
Wow.
their age. They golf probably 3 or 4 times a week, and
Wow.
I put that plug in because I'm always just amazed at
Yeah.
how they can sometimes run circles around at least me. Maybe not you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So this pandemic was hard on them. For a
yeah,
while.
very
Yeah.
hard.
Not
They're
Yeah.
used to being busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my older sister is still there, like I said, with my niece and nephew. We ended up moving back to Ohio when we were thinking of having children, and we didn't. We were living in Old Town Alexandria, which was
Oh, yeah.
fun for a couple.
Yeah. We used
But-
to, when I think I told you I was stationed at Andrews, and
Yeah.
that was a date night to go over to Alexandria, Old Town Alexandria, and walk around. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we lived there for a while I was at Andrews too, on the
Okay.
Navy side of
Okay,
Andrews.
yeah.
And so we lived there for
3 years.
Yeah, you were there for 3 years. I was there for about 6. And then we ended up kind of looking around what fit in with my job and what fit in with what we wanted to have for the kids and that sort of thing. And so that's how we ended up moving to Ohio
Right.
and living in a small town out east of Columbus.
Right.
But then her family being in South Carolina and my job, American Airlines ended up merging with U.S. Air, and then that turned Charlotte into a possible place for us to live.
Right.
And so that's kind of what brought us here.
Okay.
So kind of be closer to our family, but me be closer to my job and all that
Right.
put together.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so that's how we ended up coming down here a year ago.
So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Aiken, South Carolina.
Okay.
So for people, that's really close to Augusta, Georgia. So right there on the Savannah River. And I have an older sister, and she and her family live in Columbia, South Carolina. My parents are still living and doing very well. And they live, I say Aiken, but really it's Graniteville, and it's a textile town, and that's where I'm from. But my parents were both teachers, and so I grew up with a mom and dad who worked at the school, so it was really hard to get away with things.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
everybody
bet.
knew my parents.
Yeah.
And both my mom's sisters were teachers, so they, you know.
Well, like she really tried to get away with a lot or something, you know?
Exactly.
Real rebellious child, I'm sure.
I think I was pretty good.
Pretty tame.
But yeah, and then I went to Columbia College in Columbia, and that's where my sister went to school. And it was a women's college, small women's college in South Carolina. There's 2.
There's a Columbia International
That's
University.
correct. There is, and
Okay.
it's actually not very far
Okay.
from Columbia International.
That's like a Christian college, I believe, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, and it's grown. I mean, that's a big school. And now Columbia College, I believe now they've actually expanded. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think they are now co-ed. I think
Okay.
it's just a hard.
Right.
It's a wonderful niche, and I loved being at a single gender school. It was fun,
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of schools have gone that way.
Right. Yeah.
So, but that was my background, and I got a degree in political science, which, everyone said, "Oh my goodness, that's a tough field to be in, and it's hard to get a job."
And then you moved to Washington, D.C., of all places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I worked at our state capitol for 10 years, so
Wow.
that was a lot of fun.
Okay.
And then I moved to D.C. But I actually, surprisingly, I was in government for nearly 10 years, and then when I married and moved to D.C., just knowing the lifestyle and how much work, and it is a lot of work. People move up to Washington and you work 13, 14-hour days, and we were newlyweds, and that's just not what I wanted for my life. So
Right.
I actually did not work on the Hill. I did work on K Street, and I worked for Merrill Lynch, and I worked
Okay.
at an investment bank, and that was fun.
Yeah.
That was exciting, and
Yeah.
worked downtown DC, and still got to see just a lot and experience a lot and learn about the culture, and there's definitely a culture there.
Yeah.
But this was during the Bush and Cheney years, so there
Okay.
would often be times when you're trying to commute home, but the presidents, they're coming through and they block off the street
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was quite, we loved it, and it was a good experience. But then after, as Greg had mentioned, we moved to Ohio, and we lived there almost 10 years. And, being a Southerner in Ohio, with the exception of the cold, those were just wonderful years, because I met so many amazing friends. After DC, and you would hear sirens just as a constant. I told Greg, I want to see deer. I want to hear crickets. That's the kind of life I want.
You had plenty of those.
And we actually moved into a community, and we have just deer. They were everywhere.
Oh, wow.
But I say that jokingly, because I just really.
Well, where you're moving to, you're saying right now where you're at?
Well,
No,
when we
we're
moved
in
to.
Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We just wanted a small town, because we had just, when you live in a big city,
Right.
you just
Yeah.
want to change. But just having my two girls, I've just had lifelong friends from that
Right.
time. And I think not living close to my parents, I was more dependent on friends, and very dependent on a mom. I was involved with a mom's group there and at a church, and I just highly recommend that for any young mom, to get plugged into doing something like that, because it does help you, just play dates. And when husbands, and lots of husbands travel now, you travel and you're gone, but a lot of families, and you never realize how comforting it is to have another mom that's kind of in the boat with you. And so that, and then my girls made lots of friends with my friends,
Right.
their kids, and that sort of thing.
So you had kids when you were in Ohio.
Mhm. Both girls were born.
Would you guys come over here and let us introduce you, or?
Come on.
Yeah, come on. We'll
Say
let
hello.
your mom and dad introduce you here to everybody. Yeah.
You give them your name.
Stand over here between your mom and dad and look at the camera there, so everybody can see your pretty faces right there at that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. See right there.
Well, this is Caroline. She's 9 years old,
Hi, Caroline.
and she's going to be in 4th grade.
Rock Springs Elementary.
Okay.
And this is Laura Claire, and she's going to be in 1st grade at Rock Springs.
There you
Elementary.
go. Yeah. Well, thank you all. Yeah. Beautiful young ladies. Got some pretty dresses on there too. That's great.
All
Yeah.
right.
Well, thank you
Okay,
for joining
thank
us.
you.
Yeah. All right. So you decided to come down this way.
Mhm.
And by the way, I don't know how much you had of this up where you were in Ohio, but over in our area, we got the deer,
Oh,
we
my.
got wild turkeys,
Okay.
and I've seen some groundhogs and
Oh.
possums. But I actually had a video from yesterday. I think it was yesterday. I took a short video of a fox in our backyard.
Oh,
Or
really?
actually my neighbor's backyard, but right next door. So we got a lot of woods right behind our house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the way the land is. They can't really build any houses in there. So they I think it's kind of turned into an animal haven back
Oh,
in there.
wow.
So
Well, you know what? We wondered about the the wildlife and what that
Yeah,
might be
well,
like.
I think there's a lot. Yeah, I've seen, and the wild turkeys I've seen have all been up your way where you're going to be living there. So
Snakes. What about snakes?
Well,
I'm thinking about the lake and like water monsters.
I haven't seen it. I have not seen a poisonous snake
Okay.
in my yard. Now I did see a dead copperhead the other day on the side of the road. So
They're there.
so
One
they're
thing
around.
we didn't really deal with up in Ohio. We had all the wildlife, but not snakes. So.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
or red ants.
Ah.
Yes.
So
Yeah, and I don't know that. Well, yeah, I have seen fire ants around here. I was getting confused there for a second, but yeah, there's fire ants. So
Greg never really had been exposed or experienced fire ants until maybe 6 years into being married, and you were down at my sister's and you were taking a picture and you had your shoes off, and just lo and behold, like he was like, "Oh, there's ants," not
Yeah.
realizing,
yeah,
Then you
Yeah.
realize that it's not just ants; it's
Yeah.
fire ants are a whole
I
different.
learned a lesson
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. So,
yeah. I'd never been exposed to them till I was out of the Air Force, and we had moved to Alabama, maybe out in Texas as well. I guess it was Texas. We were out there for a year, but then we moved to Alabama. But they were there. They were. I didn't grow up with them in East Tennessee. I don't know if they're there yet or not, but then we were in Laurinburg, and they were there out on the East Coast or toward the coast, and then certainly here. They're not as bad here as what they were like out in Laurinburg and Alabama. But yeah, I remember one time I was getting Josh, my son, out of the car, and we had gone somewhere and we'd parked on the side of the road, and he was probably about 2 or 3 years old. And I pulled him out of the car seat and I just stood him right there while I was trying to take care of something in the car, and he just starts screaming, and I'm like, what's wrong, Bunny? What's wrong? And he's just screaming. He's got tears rolling down. I'm like, what's wrong? And I look down, there's ants all over his legs, and just broke my heart.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But he survived it. So.
He's still here.
Yeah. So, all right. So you have siblings? You
I
probably
do.
told me.
That's okay. Yeah, my sister Anna, and I have 2 nieces.
Okay.
2 girls. So
And they are in.
They all live in,
That's right. You said your sister still
Yeah.
lives down near
But
where you grew up.
That's okay. My nieces they're both in high school.
All right. And your parents still living? Or?
They are,
Okay.
and they're actually visiting with us right now.
Okay.
And they're doing great, and it's so nice to be a little bit closer to them and get to visit with them more, and
Right.
so
Yeah. Okay. So, so what was life like growing up? I mean, was there much? Were you involved in church growing up?
I was. That's my parents. I grew up in a small church, and they're still there at that church. And before that, my granddaddy was a music minister. He was
Okay.
on the side, but
Okay.
I still to this day can picture him standing up and leading just our little country church. And so church was always a huge part of my life, and just the way we were brought up. But that's I think my mom and dad, our best memories, and my mom says this today, my parents built a pool, but they said their best memories are youth parties at the pool, and that sort of thing. Just growing up in that environment, and friends, and lifelong friends.
So when did you come to Christ?
I was about 12 years old, and our pastor, Charles Wilson, came to my house and just sat with me, and it was one of those things. I had gone to youth camp, and I think I had probably walked through all those steps already. But pastor coming and saying that prayer with me, and then he baptized me. So.
Right.
And his son, Rich, is actually the pastor at my mom and dad's church now. So
well, how about that?
Yeah, they're very close, still close friends to our family.
Yeah.
So, the Wilsons.
Yeah, and I know it's something you and I talked about the other day, and we went out to lunch, and it was I rarely miss an opportunity to just hear somebody's story about Christ and all. And I know you were sharing with me that your point of putting your faith in Christ, it's not something you can say, oh, I remember it was right here, but the certainty of that now is there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as I grew up, I mean, it was certainly something that I had gone to church since I was very small, and I had always believed, but maybe, didn't fully understand until I got older and fully understood what it is I believed.
Right.
And so to me, yeah, like you said, it wasn't like a moment that I can go to and say, this is the day that I was saved. It was a gradual process of understanding and coming to Christ.
Yeah. I've heard Ruth Graham, when she was still living, Billy Graham's wife, I heard her on one occasion that someone was asking her about when she got saved, and she said, I can't remember a time that I wasn't saved, And she wasn't saying that, since my birth, but she's just saying that, there never was a point that I can look back at and say, yep, that's the time that I was saved. And kind of like, our own lives, I only know the day I was born because I'm told that, and there's some legal documents to confirm that, but it's not that I can remember that, but doggone it, it happened, And I think, spiritually, we got to be careful about implying that if somebody doesn't remember exactly when it happened, that somehow that maybe it's not real or whatever, because that's not a part of Scripture to command that we remember a point in time. The affirmation that we read in Scripture, the affirmation of our faith, is the change that God is doing on an ongoing basis in our lives. Is He drawing us to Himself, and our passions for Him, and our love for Him growing, and our love for His Word growing, and those are the things that give us assurance of salvation, not remembering a time in the past. Matter of fact, I think that can be a real dangerous thing, because people can remember maybe when they were 6 or 7, and maybe they prayed a prayer, and maybe they didn't really understand, but they prayed a prayer, and they think, well, that did it, because I remember praying a prayer, but the change has not been there. So that's something we got to be careful about too, I think. So anyway, so you're with the airlines, American Airlines.
Yes, sir.
And how's the virus affected all that?
Oh, tremendously, it has affected all of it. So I was an international. I currently was flying international flights mostly to Europe, and of course that all got shut down in March. I really haven't done anything since March. However, I've been extremely fortunate that the government came out with a plan that helped the airlines, which in turn helped me, and that plan is through September 30th. So I've been extremely fortunate through all this.
Any signs of things picking up?
Yeah, there are. There are signs of the domestic flying picking up, and now they're announcing, starting to add on some international flying late summer or late fall.
Right.
And so I think we'll start getting back into it.
Yeah, my daughter, I think I told you, she works at TSA, and I noticed that she's starting to be called into work more. So I kind of sensed that things were picking up a little bit. Plus, there's a flight pattern right over top of probably right over where you guys are renting too.
Yeah.
But we every once in a while the planes are coming in from the north into Charlotte, and they're literally flying like right over top of our house. And one of the Bradfields, I don't know if you know the Bradfields or not, but
I don't know.
Anyway, they're in the church, and Jason and Lisa, and they're air traffic controllers.
Okay.
So I was asking her about that. I said, it seems like sometimes they're coming, and then other times they're not. And she said they change the direction in which they land so that they can keep. And I think I may have this wrong, but I think the way she explained it, she said that they want to get the tread on the runways. They want that tread to be coming in from both directions or something. That was part of the reasoning behind that. So I thought, well, that's curious.
Yeah, and
of course, you're a pilot. You should know that.
The winds drive
all
that stuff too. So they have to go one direction or the other.
Yeah.
But when it's really busy, you got them landing one way and taking off the other, so you're going to get the noise. It's either going to be the airplanes coming in out of your house, going to the airport, or going away.
Yeah, and I have not noticed the planes taking off coming over our house. I've never noticed that, so I don't know if maybe they get up higher quicker or something or what.
Yeah,
but
make a turn. even
Yeah.
before they get up this
Yeah.
far north.
But anyway,
I
so
think I've met Lisa at a
yeah,
mom's
she's
group.
got some children. Yeah,
She has little ones,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, maybe it was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Wow. Well, anything else you want to add to your story here? Anything else going on?
No,
Well, we've really enjoyed our time at the church. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been really nice. It's not only to go to church and do that, but to start getting plugged into the community. It's
Right.
helped us with that, especially once we move into the city or into town of
Yeah.
Denver instead of being up in Sherrills Ford.
Yeah.
We'll be down here and be closer, and our kids will be going to school closer, and
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's been great.
Yeah. Got some built-in neighbors from the church too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there you go.
Great.
Yeah. Well, that's great. All right. All right. Well, thank you all for coming in today, and
Sure.
appreciate you just sharing your story. And if you got more questions for them, then I'm sure they'll be glad to talk with you, and they may have some for you as well. But I want to encourage some of you that if we have a new family like this that can come in and sit down here and share their story with you. There's some of you that still need to come out and share your story, but we do appreciate you guys coming in, and I appreciate y'all tuning in. And if you have any questions, needs, or prayer requests, please do not hesitate to contact us. The number here at the church is 704-483-1000, and you can email us at info@westport.church. Or if you have a prayer request, prayer@westport.church. Our website is www.westport.church, and you can find out any information there that you may need as well. But thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you all for coming in, and thank you ladies for coming over and introducing yourselves as well. And God bless you guys. Okay.
Thank you.